that is the guts of it. And I say again, I agree with the first speaker. It's a fundamental bill that will make a great difference.
Kris Faafoi.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair, and thank the Minister for taking that call. Can I start with some acknowledgements? First of all, I guess to my colleague Claire Curran, who I think even the Minister may have suggested is being dogged with this issue. I do remember many moons ago when I used to be a member of the Commerce Select Committee when my colleague Claire Curran was chasing up this issue in the infancy of the broadband rollout. So I'd like to acknowledge her and her unwavering commitment to make sure that these issues are dealt with. Seeking acknowledgement, obviously, to the Commerce Select Committee for being open enough to make the very technical and, I guess, particular changes that are within this piece of legislation to ensure that people who want to get connected to broadband can. The third acknowledgement I want to make is to a man who passed away about this time last year, who used to operate a business in my electorate by the name of Rob Neru. He was the Chief Executive of the Pacific Business Trust, but before he took over that role, Mr Chair, he was the operator of a business called Advantage for Me. It was run out of Porirua, and it was an online rugby coaching tool. So they used high-definition video to help coaches out in the community better coach their teams. And he had an issue with an office that he was in back in 2013, I believe it was, and came to me for some assistance with some delays that he was having with getting his, I guess, quite high broadband width being installed into his location, because he was having issues because he was in a multi-dwelling unit. So a lot of the issues that Mr Neru raised with me back in 2013 around access, around continued access because of maintenance and upgrading are being dealt with in this piece of legislation. I think if he were still here today, he'd be very happy with what was going on. I think he'd be, to some extent, frustrated that it took so long to get here. But I guess that goes to the doggedness of my colleague sitting behind me, that these issues are being taken up. This piece of legislation, as I said, is quite particular. And one of the issues that he raised at the time is as being in a multi-dwelling unit. I believe it was Chorus at the time was having some difficulty meeting the requirements of what he wanted in his business. He had to get the consent of the other businesses who were part of, who essentially his neighbours, and he was having some trouble getting to that. This is going to make that a lot easier. I think having been shown around by Rob at the time, Mr Chair, it wasn't an issue of being having to go and I guess put holes in the walls of his neighbours. It was the access to common areas within the building to be able to do some of the planning and to do the outfitting of the cabling into his building. That was at the nub of his frustrations. And I guess there are a number of clauses within this piece of legislation that carry out that. One of the questions that I had to the Minister, and I know that there is a disputes resolution system built into this piece of legislation, is how will that work? As someone who wasn't on the Select Committee at that stage, whether while this sets out a framework where business owners in Mr Neru's situation might be happy that things can happen, there's still the potential for things to not go to plan if someone were to put up a protest. My question is, and sorry for not being able to figure it out within the legislation, is how responsive is the disputes resolution system, and not only responsive but how fast can they act, because when we're talking about 15 days for a Category 2 application for work, that's what I would call quite a tight time frame, and how quickly can a disputes resolution complaint be sorted out to make sure that someone who's in that situation might not have to wait months. It might just be weeks to make sure that their issue might be sorted out. There is, of course, an onus on people who are installing the system to put the property back into the shape that they found it, and I think that's certainly one of the issues that I have found in not just the case that I'm quoting here, but also other constituents have come to me with issues around access, and I think that's why this select committee has done great work and being very particular about what they're asking and the obligations of those who are installing the broadband. So I'd like to just finish by congratulating the Select Committee, Mr Chair, because I think they've done fantastic work. Again, acknowledge my colleague behind me because she hasn't let this bone go, and I think this piece of legislation, Mr Chair, and I think this piece of legislation is all the better for the doggedness, determination and passion that Claire Curran has had for many years around this issue. I think people in and around the country who are sick of the delays, quite rightly will still be sick of the delays, but now will have a piece of legislation when it will be passed soon that will cut a lot of the time and waiting and frustration out of their lives to make sure they can get access to broadband. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Ria Bond.
Thank you, Mr Chair.